until they bring the streetcars back. Chapter 35. When what had happened finally sunk in, I was really ticked off and I scrubbed and polished latrines like I wanted to kill someone. Darn it, that wasn't the way I was supposed to turn out. I blasted my parents, lost the girl I loved, thrown away my chance to graduate with my class, and just about been choked to death. And after all that, Otto Letterman hadn't a scratch on him, and I was locked up and couldn't do a thing to help Gretchen. I could save myself some by explaining my plan to my father and mother and to Lola, and they'd believe me. They might think I was stupid for trying something like that, but at least they'd known I wasn't a lousy thief. But if I told them I'd been given up on Gretchen just so they wouldn't think I was a jerk or something. In court, the cops could make me tell what they knew and Letterman would go away, but they couldn't tell what they didn't know, and maybe I could tell them later. When Letterman was locked up and Gretchen safe, until then my family and friends would have to think I was a bad apple because I just couldn't get back in good with them and save my reputation with Gretchen's only chance. I found out later that on Wednesday afternoon my dad was driving his streetcar through downtown St. Paul on 4th Street, probably worrying over me and not paying attention, when he pulled up behind a driver who was trying to back his four-hole Buick into a parking space. The bald man shook his fist and honked, motioning for my dad to back up. But my dad wasn't about to back up for a stupid automobile. Let him go around the block and try again. The driver got out and shouted at my dad, motioning him back, and my dad held his ground as another streetcar pulled up behind. The guy locked the doors on his car and stomped off, leaving the streetcar blocked and my dad steaming. The streetcar and cars began stacking up and honking and ringing their bells. It was like the 4th of July parade. After several minutes, the driver came back with a policeman explaining what happened and pointing at the streetcar. The car marched over and told my dad to back it up. Holy cow! How could he back up with half the streetcars and cars in St. Paul lined up behind him? The traffic jam now piled up 3 blocks back to Wabasha, with drivers shouting and leaning on their horns. The cop walked behind my dad's streetcar and motioned the next car back. Foot by foot and minute by minute, they made enough room for the smirking driver could back his Buick into the parking space. 28 minutes behind schedule, my dad pulled the plug from the dam, heading out north on Mississippi. The next day, my dad had a fit at breakfast when he saw the whole thing reported in Thursday morning's Pioneer Press. Every day it rained like crazy, and the sweet smell of greening grass drifted through the high barred windows. I kept out of sight as much as possible through the next week, did what I was told, and polished the toilets to a shine. Spence came in the day. Spence came in the can one day and leveled his shotgun eyes at me. You mad at the toilets? I stopped attacking the hardened stains and sat back on my heels while the old guy stood at the urinal. This isn't the way I thought it would turn out, I said. Life is a surprise, a pin the tail on the donkey surprise. When you think you're stuck it on his ass, you find out you've stuck it in your ear. He shook off his dong and turned to face me. I've been thinking about how brave we all are. The worn out old man staggered slightly and braced himself with one arm against the crummy wall. He peered into the daylight streaming through the high glass cubed window, talking in a whisper like the light was a vision from God. We keep on trying, we go on and on and on without love, searching, hoping, hearing on another hour, another day. You know what? He turned and looked at me squatting on the floor. Here's the kicker. We keep wanting someone to love us. Our mother, our father, the woman in our life, friends, or God. Spence coughed and blew his nose into the urinal, one nostril at a time. Surprise, surprise, I think. Finally, the love we need the most is our own. We never learn to love ourselves. He huffed out of the lavatory with his fly open, and I sat on my haunches for a minute, confused. I thought you weren't supposed to love yourself. You turn out conceited and selfish. I guess Spence had never felt love, and I wondered how my life would turn out. Could I possibly end up like Spence, alone, unwanted, left at the city dump like a worn-out shoe? My mother came on Sunday and told me some friends were waiting to see me. She was a lot better and she tried to act her old self and make everything happy. What I'd done still confused her, but it wasn't the end of the world. And she was sure that I'd learned some great lesson like the judge said, and never again disgrace them like that. She tried to cheer me up, and I tried to return the kindness, and we parted on a high note. Only 14 more days, she said as she hugged me. Yeah, only 14. Sandy came next, and I was really embarrassed to have her see me there. She sat next to me on one of the benches along the wall with the grubby room full of women visiting their husbands and boyfriends, and it felt strange with Sandy there. I know you didn't do it, Bean. I just know you wouldn't. Thanks. She yacked about school and she told me that Scott was going with Katie and that she tried to smile, but I could tell how bad she felt. Have you seen Lola? I said, yes, I figured she'd be back with Tom, I said. Sandy nodded. I talked to Gretchen the other day. I hadn't dared ask, but as long as Sandy brought it up, I figured it wouldn't hurt to find out what I could. How is she? She came up to me in the hall and asked about you. When I told her you wouldn't be back to school, that you were in jail, she looked like she was going to be sick. She just said, oh no, and walked away like I wasn't even standing there. Would you do me a big favor, Sam? Sure, anything. Get a nut goodie and give it to Gretchen and tell her it's from Cal. A nut goodie? Yeah, but don't tell anybody else about it. Will you do that? Sure, Bean, but why a nut goodie? Just say it's from Cal. She'll understand. The candy bar was the only way I could think of to let Gretchen know that I was still on her side and that I hadn't given up on her or on stopping her father. When Sandy left, Jerry and Scott showed up, and I was starting to wish they didn't allow visitors. This is a Mickey heaven, Jerry said as he eyeballed an old wino, and I could tell he was trying to avoid it by joking around. I could go crazy in here. So could I said. Are you getting out soon? Scott said. Yeah, 2 weeks. We were totally uncomfortable, fumbling for words, though both of them tried to show they were on my side. I thanked them for coming to visit their convict friend, and their laughs were hollow. But I was steaming that they could actually believe what they'd heard about me. Didn't they know me after all these years together? Did that count for something? Doggone it, I wanted to shake them by the ears and shout, you dumb jerks. Do you really think I'm a crummy thief? When they left, I realized Jerry didn't punch me on the shoulder. Not once. On my hands and knees, I was scrubbing out the marble latrines the jailbirds had so much trouble hitting and thinking they should be given neutron bomb sites when a guard said I had a visitor. Wednesday morning? There were no visiting hours on Wednesday. Could it be Lola skipping school when her mother wouldn't know and persuade them to let her see me? I washed my hands and tucked in my shirt and hustled to the visitor's room with high hopes. What I got was Pastor Ostrom. Geez, I was ashamed to see him. I'd been pouring rain again for days, and when I walked between the wooden benches toward him, I caught something in his face that warned me to turn and run. He stood there in a dripping raincoat and looking more like an undertaker than a preacher. He kind of sagged onto the bench like he was tired or something, and as I reached him, he nodded for me to sit too. I squatted on the edge of the bench, and I felt like my throat was going dry, and someone was unloading bricks in my stomach. Cal, your father died last night.